Okay, so let's dive into this. We're looking at some really interesting source material today on the top U.S. defense contractors. We're focusing on, well, the big money, the contract values, and what the industry itself actually looks like today. Our goal here is to cut through that data, pull out the key takeaways about who's getting these massive contracts and, what that tells us about the defense landscape right now.
It's definitely a world defined by immense scale. Just looking at the figures you shared, the Department of Defense awarded $609.2 billion in contracts in 2023 alone.
$600 billion. Wow. That's just a staggering number to start
It
with.
really is.
And what jumps right out from the sources, immediately, is who gets the lion's share. Lockheed Martin.
The clear number one.
They pulled in $61.4 billion in DoD contracts last year. That's 10% of the entire pot, just one company.
A really significant percentage. And then following Lockheed, the data shows the next tier. You've got RTX Corporation at $24.1 billion, then General Dynamics pretty close behind at $22.9 billion, Boeing with $20.1 billion, and Northrop Grumman at $16.3 billion.
So a noticeable drop after Lockheed, yeah, but those top five, they're still dealing in absolutely enormous sums. And it's interesting, like the sources point out with General Dynamics, and not just one thing, are they? They have different segments.
Exactly. Aerospace, marine systems, combat systems, technologies. It's diversified. They're not just, building tanks or planes exclusively.
Right.
And that ties into a really critical point from the material about the industry structure itself. It's become highly, highly consolidated.
This is the part I found fascinating. The number of main players has just shrunk dramatically, hasn't it?
It really has. What's quite striking is the history here. Back in the 1990s, you were looking at around 51 major prime contractors working with the DoD.
51, okay.
Today, that number effectively is down to just 5.
51, down to 5. That is some serious consolidation.
It's huge.
And are those 5 basically the ones we just listed? Lockheed, RTX, General Dynamics, Boeing, Northrop Grumman?
Precisely. Those are the legacy firms. They're the dominant forces now, largely the result of decades of mergers, acquisitions, you name it.
Okay.
And this isn't just, a number. This concentration really shapes the whole defense industrial base, how things get done, how contracts work.
Yeah, you can see how it would. It means a massive amount of defense spending is flowing through this very, very small group at the top. Although looking further down your top 10 list, there's some interesting variety, even if the dollar amounts drop off quite a bit.
That's true. After the big 5, you see Huntington Ingalls, mostly shipbuilding, right? At $10.5 billion. Then, maybe surprisingly, Humana, the healthcare company, at $7.8 billion.
Yeah, that one stood out.
L3 Harris Technologies at $7.5 billion, BAE Systems at $7 billion, and even another healthcare-related one, Sonora, at $4.4 billion.
So seeing Humana and Syncora there really highlights that defense contracting isn't just, weapons and jets.
Exactly. It covers healthcare for personnel, logistics, IT, all sorts of support services. It's a much broader picture than maybe people first assume.
Right. So I guess the main takeaways are, first, the sheer scale, that $600 billion plus figure. Second, the intense concentration, especially among those top 5 legacy companies.
Definitely.
But third, also realizing the breadth of what the DoD actually contracts for when you look a bit beyond that very top tier.
Absolutely. Understanding that distribution, and especially that historical shift from 51 primes down to just 5, is key to understanding the defense industry today, based on these sources.
It paints a very clear picture of where most of that money is going and who the main players are.
Yes, the structure laid out in the data is quite stark.
So wrapping up, the core story from the data is this massive spending concentrated among a tiny handful of powerful legacy firms due to decades of consolidation.
That sums it up well.
It leaves you thinking, though, considering that dramatic consolidation from 51 down to 5, what could the long-term effects be, on things like innovation or maybe competition within the sector? Just something to ponder based on the structure these numbers show us.